so I can see that. And so we're going to have a bit of a shift, and again, it's about inspiration and showing what people are up to, what they're out there causing, what they're creating to assist us with this kind of movement. So we're going to have Dr. Shree Bhalero up here from St. Michael's Hospital, and he's a lead psychiatrist, or a psychiatric doctor who works with post-brain injury victims, and he understands that it's as important to have their mind and their thoughts in alignment with recovery, and understanding that there isn't just physical side effects, that there's mental, emotional side effects as well. And it's really awesome how much of a leader he is in this area of brain injury. I believe it was his passion for hockey and inspiration for getting education about this and research about brain injury out there that's started this documentary. And there's also this really cool app for those people. I know there's only a few people that have mobile devices like phones out there now, but there's this app coming out to help with post-traumatic brain injury symptoms and recovery, I believe. But I'm not going to talk too much about it. I'm going to let him do that now. And we're also going to see a bit of a little children's book that they're putting together, which is just brilliant to help educate them, when they're this big about, snowboarding properly and stuff, I guess, and safely, and keeping aware and protecting your head. So I'd like to invite Shree up right now, and I'm going to give him a little hand on the computer to get things going. And in the meantime, why don't you say what you want to say?
Sure, thanks. Thanks. So first things first, thanks for the invite. We always appreciate, I think it's a huge and a worthy cause, and that's why I think myself, Dr. Cusimano, have joined this, because this is, it's a brilliant idea. It's simple, but takes a ton of work, and so we're throwing it out to someone else to do the work, hopefully, and that's easier partially. The other thing is you rarely have venues where you hear stories, and you rarely have, sorry. So you rarely have venues where I hear stories besides our clinic. We have a head injury clinic here, and that's where all the physicians, the psychiatrists, so on, hear the stories, but we hear the kind of the medicalized version of the stories. So, and we try our best to understand the entire story, but these are the kind of things that I think more of the public needs to hear and understand. So thank you for all the people that are sharing their stories. It's not simple, and it adds another flavor that actually made me think about, I'm skipping a bit ahead, but with our app, we don't have enough patient stories on the app, so we may actually think about adding a piece to it, because we have enough psychiatry stories, might as well get some real patient stories on it. Bottom line of why I got here is for the last, I don't know how many years, I've been doing this for about 15 years, TBI, traumatic brain injury. I always go to conferences and present to patients or to staff and physicians like I'm kind of talking to the converted. And so it sounds good. I sound intelligent, feel good about myself. But what does that do to move the needle? It doesn't do much. And so I kind of shifted into public education as a part of my objective to, as you said, moving the needle or getting it out there. I liked your analogy about you see something and then you get somewhere else and you see something else. And that's exactly what I saw, is there's a need for public education. So I went bananas. And bananas in terms of I had these ideas, and it's all distilled down to about 3 ideas right now. And the 3 ideas are our app, our documentary, and hopefully the book. And what I want to do today is kind of a funky version of my kind of way to improve. This is a quality improvement conference. That's what I'm looking at as. And you are the consumers, or we're on a board. Let's say we're on a panel, we're on a board. We all kind of know, and more people, more than others, know traumatic brain injury. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show things that we've done, but we're going to have about a 2 or 3 minute discussion, if we have time, with the audience to criticize or to validate. Although validating is kind of, doesn't move the needle much, other than me, of course. But if we're going to send this material to the public, I would like to know from the audience what's missing or what they would like differently. So we'll just kind of quickly use the audience knowledge to move the needle a bit, and hopefully we'll obviously incorporate it into our next steps when we try to get this out to the public, okay? So the first thing is we're gonna do I think it's the documentary, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're sitting, you and your kids, you and your family, all of a sudden are watching TV, you're at a movie theater, and holy mackerel, this documentary film clip or whatever comes up. And naturally we'll show it, and then after it stops, and you can talk, you get a chance to say, this is great, garbage, whatever. Okay? And we'll love your feedback, so here we go.
And just to prep everybody, we're going to do this. We're going to hand around this mic, and we'll have you stay on the podium afterwards. And if you have your comment or whatnot, just please wait till the mic comes to you so we get it on the recording. Thank you so much.
From that first concussion, it felt like I was back to square one. Like I couldn't talk. Like I couldn't put words together. For 5 months, I kind of just sat in the dark.
One of the big stigmas is that you can't see it.
No one really likes to admit that something's broken, something's not working, something's not functioning normally.
We live in a world where for some reason, where saying I suffer from a mental illness is very difficult for people.
I don't see a lot of people in any circle of life opening up about psychiatric issues or mental health issues.
Unless you've had a head injury, you've had a concussion, it's hard for people to understand.
There's a taboo there, but that's not an athlete thing. That's a people thing.
You've got a lot of pride. You don't want to admit that you've got a chink in your armor.
1 minute fine, and the next minute, can't watch TV, can't have the lights on, can't function in everyday life. It just doesn't make sense.
I believed in myself enough to think that had I stayed healthy, I would have played well enough to give myself an opportunity to play in the NHL.
There's a lot of mythology wrapped around hockey.
Tough as nails, and we're Canadian hockey. We play hard, we suck it up.
The winter sport, the kind of the myth of the small town kid skating on the frozen pond. We've wrapped all kinds of stuff into that and said that's part of what we are.
I was just so focused on recovering from the injury and making sure that when I come back, I'm gonna be ready.
Unfortunately, a concussion isn't something that you can just suck it up and work harder through. It's sometimes something you have to back off and you have to actually be educated about.
The sports world isn't really capable of dealing with something like this. This is totally out of their comfort zone.
Sometimes it takes big names to bring the attention to it, but it's coming.
I'm never going to be the same. So I think that's when the depression sat, and realized that my career was literally coming to an end. It was important for people to hear, I guess, because I believe that I'm not the only one that has gone through that or is going through it.
Okay, so Roger Eberts of the world. Go ahead.
I think it was awesome that it pointed out the negative things that can happen and the struggles people have. I think it would be excellent if you could then insert some of the inspiring stories that these people had, and then it would be balanced and on a positive note to inspire people.
Right, so along that line, I'm trying to pretend to be like Mr. Cans or whoever, but this is just purely hanging around with people that do this stuff. So I agree with that. The Max Taylor story is that thread. So if we had a bunch of stories, apparently it's not good for movies. For documentaries, you have to follow one story. So it's going to be the Max Taylor story, is how he successfully got through the head injury and how he's a successful real estate agent and so on. So that's the story it's going to be. But I definitely, I wanted to throw in as much. No, you can't. And so, but it makes sense. And this is a little longer than the average trailer, so it's usually they're like 30 seconds. So
I'm one of the very few people that believe having a mental illness is a label. Very few people actually have the problem. It was just a bunch of things bumped into that label. How does a concussion relate to a mental illness? Because both are mentioned in that video, and there's no relation. Really.
Right. So the main thing from my end, because I'm a psychiatrist, just the bottom line that we always remind patients that your risk of mental illness goes up 2 times roughly if you have a head injury. And a part of this will also be a discussion about the science. So I'm in the film, but I never got to the trailer because I'm not a big shot. But so within that film, they'll also be following my story and one of our residents who is in charge. We're both in charge of trying to get this to the public. And so the story will follow us, and we will provide that information throughout the documentary. And so that's how the thread is. And the other interesting thing about, you talk about mental health, and, I'm a big fan and a proponent of not putting it under the rug. So I think, again, this is my bias, but let's get it out there. Forget about putting it under the rug. Let's just talk about it. We're not making fun of it. We're not, making it look like out of proportion, but because the original title was Sending in the Madness. And they said, no, we're not going to be doing that. Because again, it's a derogatory piece against mental illness. So that was another switch. So the dark room is representing typically what happens after, you talk about these head injuries that we just heard about. You go into a space where it really feels dark and alone. Okay. Yep.
I want to commend you for starting this documentary, because I think it's so critical that parents in particular with with children that are playing these sports are aware of the impact. Because you often wonder when it's the parents that may have lost their ambitions for their children, and how to see that regardless of the outcome and the success that you can have, you can still be successful in another capacity. It might not be in the sports.
Yes, and that's a great point, because a part of this app is going to be really designed for parents and coaches, so we're getting that piece. But to get it into the documentary, I'm really trying to push for the cultural piece and kind of, what is the culture of the game, the parents, the coaches. So again, I'm against a bunch of guys that know what they're doing as opposed to what I want. And it's more about, like someone said, these big players and so on. To get more people into the theater, we need to keep it in a kind of that bigger, glossier version. And I don't like that. I want to do the dummied down, nice documentary, get on the road and talk to people version. But I'm going to try to sneak it in, because I'm on the board, but I'm going to try.
Thanks for showing us your documentary. I just had a quick question when you were talking with the athletes themselves. I went to a previous conference before, and it was a former CFL player, and he was talking, he was sharing his story when he got injured, his first concussion. What they tell each other to do among the players is, once you first wake up, just look at the scoreboard. So you know what team you play for, you know who you're facing against. When you know where you are, what the score is. And do you hear that from the NHL hockey players themselves? Do they had to cheat the system? So he ended up going back to the game, but obviously his career ended because of repeated concussions. But he was sharing that story, and I wanted to know, what do you guys do in that case?
In the interviews, nothing spontaneously has come out like that. But what has come out spontaneously is that, I have a contract. If these guys find out I have a mental illness or a concussion, what's it going to do for my next contract? So we haven't, and I think you're getting onto something, is do we have, there's an additional culture of hiding concussions. And it also feeds into the common layperson's idea, it's just a bonk on the head, right? So, but you're right, there is another undercurrent within that, because they're protecting their job, their family. And the hardest thing is, I mean, you probably, all of us have kind of, you know, if you have these stressors that you have to deal with, and you can kind of talk and walk and do your thing, you just keep going, you know. But again, it's this gradual diminishment of skills and emotions and everything, and that's how traumatic brain injury affects people. It's just this gradual, just downward spiral, which is really unfortunate. But that may be something we should ask to bring it out. Great. Anything?
Yeah,
oh, sorry.
I have the questions about, it is really true, and I agree with you have the brain injury. Emotional does really affect, so it has to must to bring the emotional support to deal with the brain injury. I agree with this one. And the second question is, for me, I don't want to change the topic, but in order to, the brain injuries issues, so how can we protect or prevent the brain injuries to happen? So this is, for me, the main issue to deal with it. And then the second thing, if the people have the brain injury, and what should be done. So I totally agree with this documentary, that the emotional support.
Yes, and that's my flag, is that there's not enough psychiatrists that know the area, but we're trying to get it out. And that's why I switched to public education, is that people need to know this. And I think and in fact, a part of, just to brag a bit of the app, will allow you to see resources for psychiatric care. So we're making sure across the country, if you press one of the buttons, you can, if you're in Saskatchewan or Armpit, Ontario, or whatever, you still can find some type of psychiatric help. And that's my push, is to get that out there, because people have no clue. I mean, there's these broad strokes, oh, she doesn't look well. No, there's a lot more layers to it than that. And even basic statistics, like you say, it doubles the risk of mental health. You can even scare them, and realistically, you can double the risk of suicide as well, with certain types of contusions and so on. So, I mean, the public needs to know. And so that's kind of why I think I'm bragging a bit, which I have to. I think that's why they're including me on that film, because I'll just tell you. I'm not going to skirt around the issue. And I think that helps to get it out there.
Shree, is it okay? We're going to have an interactive portion at the end of the day, the last part, 30 minutes, with the audience.
Okay.
Would we be able to look at the book and a little bit of details? If you just hit the down arrow in your slide there.
Okay, just do that now? Okay,
yeah,
sure.
That would be awesome.
So this is this is just a quick, so there's myself and Siddhartha, he's one of the medical students. And again, another thing I kind of went gung-ho with. Fortunately, he's going even more gung-ho, and that helps. The bottom line of the app is we need the parents, coaches, and people within the community. And all of you have talked about, you know what, I went home. You know what, I didn't see a doctor. Although Max definitely did. But, there are situations where no one seeks help. So the line we have is we're having a doctor at your side all the way through your concussion. And that's kind of what we're hoping the app will do. If you don't see a doctor, at least the app will say, go see one, because you have just ticked on to all the red flags that you have to go, forget our app, get to the emergency department. So the app will help you, first of all, from the initial assessment. It will also help you to track symptoms. And then using our expertise in the clinic and whoever we can get we're going to have a resource for you. You can go, like a bibliography. You can go to an article. And we're also going to have snippets of myself, clinicians, giving you like 1 minute on depression, 1 minute on anxiety, so that quickly you can go onto it and then hopefully keep using us and track it and download the material and take it to your family doctor and say, look, my symptoms have been going from a 2 to a 6. What's up, buddy? And so the app is designed based on the Ontario Neuro Foundation guidelines. So that's also going to help anybody. And hopefully it'll also help people for group supports. brain injury associations, psychiatrists, and so on. So it's just a resource that hopefully people will use. And, oh, you're not asking what? Yeah, go ahead.
Is there a component in the app memory management?
So what we're doing is it gets trickier and trickier as we go, but we're thinking about like having games and things of that sort to allow for that. But the bigger piece for us is, and it's kind of we call it a pilot project, but I don't think it is to collect research about who's using it and what areas they're using. And then once we get that, we may tweak it to doing like more specific things. But there will be a memory piece to it where you do monitor it. Okay. And then we'll just go on quickly to, yeah, so this is exactly what, and this is how it, actually, let's just go backwards. So that's the nice cover of it. And then these are the kind of questions and we designed it based on like we have in the brain injury clinic, they had done a whole thing on how TBI patients use technology and the drawbacks and the strengths of it, like do they like visuals, do they like videos, and so on. So we tried our best to tailor it to patients with TBI. And so not too busy on the slide and so on. So there's a whole bunch of things. So this is the last piece, and I might go over just a bit, but so this is the last quality assurance piece. So I don't know, I think I was Madonna when I had my kids, because she started writing poetry books. And, you know, all these people, these rock stars, whoever they are, whenever you have kids, you think you can write poetry books because you're reading them to your kids all the time. So I had this idea, and so I had a peanut allergy book first, and it sold 0 on Amazon. So it's peanuts in school ain't cool, so if you want to buy it, I think it's 99 cents. No. So then, so as I got involved in this head injury thing, I said, what am I doing? Why don't I just pretend to write a book on this head injury stuff? And fortunately, we had a great illustrator who was into it. And this is what, so I just want your feedback quickly, and we got about 1.5 minutes. And, but I'm going to read the book and just tell me what you think, okay? Headshots in school just ain't cool. Billy loves hockey so very, very much. He knows all the rules and such. He talks with his buddies about scores, stats, and plays. Hockey makes him smile every single day. Billy also plays and has all the equipment to keep him safe, all the way from shoulder pads, helmets, and skates. One day his parents drove him to the rink, and it was on that day that his heart began to sink. It happened during period number 2. Billy was tied with only a few minutes due. That wasn't great rhyming. Billy was on a breakaway and no other players were near. It was just Bill and the goalie, so it appeared. Billy skated toward the net looking forlorn because out of nowhere he felt his head had been torn. He heard bells in his ears and couldn't understand what was being said. His memory went hazy, the lights went out, and he felt like he was dead. The doctor told him to avoid sports and school for numerous weeks, and if he hit his head again, the future may become bleak. For days and days he remained in a fog. He couldn't go to school and he could no longer jog. Slowly, after his mind started to clear, his mood improved, as did his sleep and fear. When he returned to school, he found the girl who had hurt his head and told her about spending all that time away in bed. Bella, the girl who had caused Billy so much pain, started a campaign to clean up her name. Bella began teaching kids to respect other people's brains, and if they feel like getting even, then they need to refrain. Bella made kids realize that winning at all costs is not always the best. She also made her classmates take the pre-head injury tests. Billy was very proud of what Bella was doing at school. They both agreed that cheap shots in hockey just ain't cool. There you go. Thanks.
So what did you all think about that? Did you think that was a good idea, that book? Yeah? I'll let you know when it's on Amazon then. Excellent. Well, now it comes to everybody's favorite part of the day usually. There's some munchies and a little bit of break and a snack.